Hey everybody, my name is Rahul and in this video I'll be discussing a few 403 bypass techniques. Now who is this video for? Now if you are a seasoned bug bounty hunter or a penetration tester, then what I'm going to discuss will be of no use to you. So if you are an absolute beginner, then maybe this might be of helpful or of use to you. But let me just tell you that performing a 403 bypass is highly contextual. So even if I tell you these methods, there's no guarantee that they are going to work. So you have to kind of thoroughly understand the application, the framework it is running on, the server it is running on, and then you can curate your test cases. Now, without much ado, let's begin with. Now, credit where credit is due. Now, whenever I'm stuck, I always refer to hack tricks, be it on network assessments, or web app, or other assessments. So I have taken a few things from here, but rest assured, I have looked through internet resources and other things that I have highly found useful to me. So I'll be referring them. Now here are a few known techniques, like you can fuzz the directories, you can look for hidden parameters or headers using tools like Arjun and param-miner. You can try changing HTTP verbs, but most of the times it will not work. Now one thing that has surprisingly worked is finding the origin IP associated with a domain name. Now what happens is most of the times these domain names are behind, or your website or an application is behind certain solutions like Cloudflare, Akamai, or any other software solution. Now what typically ends up happening is, due to certain misconfigurations, only when you try to look for their DNS names they go through Cloudflare. But if you know the actual origin IP, then you might be able to bypass a lot of restrictions. So I have a complete video about this on how you can exactly find the origin IP, so worth checking that out. So let's talk about the first tool and its theory behind it. So there is a tool called 403 bypasser. Now what this tool does, now I talked about this in the previous slide, that you can look for hidden parameters or headers. So what is this tool is going to do is that it is going to automate that part for you. What do I mean by that? It will try to inject headers, for example this, and its associated values. It will also try to perform path manipulation. So as you can see, these are a few things that it has done in order to manipulate the path and to somehow evade restrictions and get you a 200 OK instead of 403. So this is something that I try to do, but this is just to automate. uh, I haven't found it to be much useful, to be frank with you guys. The Python command for it is very simple. You can look it up on GitHub. So I have the GitHub link here. I'll also be giving it in the description section. So 403 bypasser followed by the domain name and the directory. For example, the directory is secret, so I'll do a /secret, and here is the domain name. Now the second one, which is quite interesting, and this got someone with the guy named Stealthy Bugs. I think he's highly known in Twitter with a lot of bounty that he's received for hacking web applications. So you should highly check him out. You should definitely check him out. So this is the Apache Tomcat part traversal issue. Now here, as you can see, this is what 403 bypasser will also attempt to do, which is injecting dot semicolon followed by the directory. Now what ends up happening is that due to certain misconfigurations in Apache Tomcat, a lot of times what will happen is, if you do this, number one, you can escape any restrictions that have been placed by any software solutions, like it is trying to check for any malicious keywords. So in this way you can bypass certain filters. And secondly, what ends up happening on the server side is this gets replaced by this. So all the effort is done by the server's backend. And Stealthy Bugs found this issue on Apple, so that's huge. The second is, so this was specific related to Apache. Now the upcoming two are specifically related to Nginx. Now they are very similar to ones that you already know, so that's why this video is just for beginners. But I just want to let you know the theory. And a lot of times what happens is, it is not the web application that might be vulnerable, but actually the vulnerabilities that are introduced by the server itself. Now if you see, this is called the off by slash vulnerability, and this is the config file of Nginx. Now if you see, there's a location parameter and then there is a slash API location or route. Now what ends up happening is, for example, this is the route, which is http server.com slash API slash user. Now what ends up happening is, now let's say that Nginx is not acting as a web server, but it is acting like a proxy. So what ends up happening is, it will remove the part till API, which is this, and it will use slash user. Now as you can see, slash user is left, and since it is acting as a proxy, it will replace, or it will use this instead of the actual domain that you had passed. So it is API server slash v1. So it is API slash server slash v1 plus the user, and as you can see, it becomes two slashes internally. Now I'll tell you about this in the next slide also. It will normalize this to slash user or v1 slash user. Now this is the request that it is expected to send, but as you can see, there is no forward slash in here. So because of which, what will happen is, if you do this like dot dot slash, what remains is dot dot slash, and dot dot slash gets appended. So sorry, I forgot to add a server status over here. So it would be dot dot slash server status, and it will append it here. So the request that gets made is server status. So as you can see, this was not an application issue, but more on how the config file of Nginx was written. The next one is merge slashes is set to off. So what happens in merge slashes is, if you enter multiple slashes, it would become one. As you can see, Nginx slash 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 h1, it would become Nginx h1. And as you can see, let's say the application is vulnerable to part traversal, which as you can see here, as you can see, if you do multiple slashes as well, it would still work. So this is how merge slashes work. As you can see, in the first line itself, it shows triple slash dot dot nginx.js. So these are a few issues that I'm going to discuss. Hopefully you guys liked it.